The brakes are the most important safety item on your bike, and yet they're so often neglected. Sometimes until it's too late. My rule is the faster it goes, the better it has to stop. To save on production costs, the manufacturers will have used one length cable to put on a number of different size bikes. And if that's not bad enough, neither them nor the mechanic who did the final assembly on your bike will have put any grease on the inner cables. A must for super responsive braking you can control. Welcome to stage 9 of Tour de Bike 2024, where I'm going to show you how to get the best braking you've ever had. And the great part is, it'll hardly cost you a penny. You've just got to become the bike. I'm going to do the rear one first. Cut the cable end off the cable and then undo the pinch bolt. You want to grab the outer cable where it goes into the adjuster and just pull it out along with the inner cable as well. You can see this is a little bit difficult, and if you take a close look at the casing cap, some of the anodizing is coming off this already. So it's already stuck. It won't be long before it seizes in with corrosion. Now take the end cap off the outer casing, and if you can't get it off with your hands, you can just use a little spanner or something like that just to slide it off. Now we're just going to strap the brake lever to the handlebars using a toe strap. Push the inner cable from the back near the caliper so that the cable starts coming out the front of the lever. Go to the lever and start pulling the cable out by the head. Sometimes you'll need to use a pair of pliers to do this. Keep pulling the cable out of the lever, making sure that you still leave some in the outer casing so it's not all the way out. This can be tricky to get back in, and you're just making a job that you didn't need to do. Normally I would just work out how short I want the cable in situ, but as this cable goes under a cable that it should be going over at the front of the bike, I'm just going to reroute it before we do that. I'm just pulling the whole cable out so I can untwist it and put it back to where it was meant to be. It's going to be neater, and the two cables won't interfere with each other. You can't necessarily expect these zip ties to be this loose so that the cable moves through them. If yours are tight, then just cut them off the bike and we'll refit some more later on. On this bike, one of the problems with the rear brake cable being too long is that it goes between the gear cable adjuster and the head tube. And so every time you turn the handlebars, it's going to be rubbing away on the adjuster. Offer up the cable to the frame where you think you're going to want it and just turn the handlebars around. It wants to be just touching the head tube without stressing it at full steering lock. The gear cable we cut down in the last stage is a good guide. And you can see by having it a bit tighter, it's not going to interfere with the gear cable adjuster on the frame. Let's run this cable back through the zip ties on the frame, back to the caliper. If you have to cut your zip ties off, put some more zip ties onto the fittings, but don't do them up too tight because you want to be able to move the cable backwards and forwards, but you just don't want it flying around and not taking a direct route. Once you get the cable all the way down to the caliper, you want to turn the handlebars all the way round, and I'm just going to strap the handlebars to the top tube here with a toe strap. It just makes it less fiddly. I measure it like this because it allows for the bike falling over or being packed away in a box. When you look at the big loop of this brake cable from the side, you can see how much of a difference we've already made by shortening the gear cables in the last stage. So push the cable away from you towards the back of the bike so that when the handlebars are at full lock, it just touches the head tube. You know it's going to be nice and neat because the gear cable and the brake cable both take the same line. I don't want to do the zip ties up yet because we might still need to move the cable around to make some adjustments. I'm strapping it to the down tube with a toe strap to stop it moving, and I'm just going to put a rag underneath it so it doesn't damage the paintwork with the buckle. Now the brake cable wraps around the head tube the way we want it to, and it's nice and secure so it won't move. Offer the outer up to the brake caliper where the adjuster is, and make sure the adjuster's screwed in because you don't want this to come up too short. Cut a little bit of extra cable off just to make sure, and just cut straight through the cable because there's no inner in there, that's further up the line. Put the end of the outer cable into the adjuster and just check that you've got a nice arc down to the chainstay. If it's a bit too long, just cut a little bit off. And just make sure all the way up from the caliper to the handlebars that there's nice arcs wherever the cable bends around. You want to get a bradawl or something else that's small and pokey and just push it inside to open the liner up and make it nice and round. This can be a major snagging point for inner cables. Go back to the lever end and get some grease on your fingers and take the brake cable and start rubbing that grease into the cable. And once you've got a bit of a length of it done, start pushing the cable back through down towards the caliper and just grease the rest of the cable up as you go. And you want to do this till you get to the head of the cable and you can push it into the holder. Make sure you've got some grease on the head. If you can't get the cable pushed all the way in, go down to the other end of the bike and grab the inner cable with a pair of pliers or something and just pull it through until the head of the cable pulls into its right position in the lever. You want to undo the toe strap that's holding the lever open and let it close. And if the head of the cable gets caught in between the lever and the body itself, just poke it back in place. Like before, you might want to pull the inner cable from the back of the bike to make the head go back into the lever properly. Get your casing cap, slide it over the inner cable, and then push it onto the end of the outer cable. If you haven't still got some grease on your fingers, get some, and you want to rub that round the outside of the casing cap before you put it into the adjuster. And this will basically stop it seizing in there and make future adjustments much easier to do. Push the inner cable through the adjuster, and then as it comes up to the pinch bolt, put it underneath the plate and keep pulling the cable until the casing cap settles into the adjuster. Now I'm going to get my cable pullers and pull the cable through, and this will help seat the casing cap if it needs it. And I'm just going to do the pinch bolt up with a hex key. Don't do it up too tight, because this probably isn't the final resting point for the cable being clamped. If you haven't got cable pullers, just use your hand to move the caliper arm towards the front of the bike and do the cable up while you hold it there. Take a look at the front of the bike now so we can bask in our glory a little bit. The gear cable and the brake cable both running pretty much the same line. You can hit the light button anytime you want. So we've got 3 of our 4 cables shortened down and greased up. We just want to get this front cable shortened down now, so we haven't just got this big loop sticking out the side of the head tube, but it also works better. There's quite a bit of extra cable here, but you don't want to cut too much of it off. You just want the cable to take a nice arc down to the fork blade. If you cut it too short, you're going to have trouble in the future if you want to service the headset or pack the bike up where you have to take the handlebars off. You really don't want to be disconnecting the brake just so that you can do some of these jobs. Pull the outer cable and the inner cable out of the caliper. As we did with the rear cable, you just want to pull the end cap off the outer housing and then pull them up through the guides that are on the back of the forks. And you just want to pull the inner out from the lever and do exactly the same things as you did to the rear cable to the front cable. The best route for this cable is behind the other cables. It's going to look a lot neater and you'll be able to get it a little bit shorter, but it also won't interfere with the other cables when you're steering. Run the cable all the way down through the zip ties to the caliper. Work out how much you need to cut off to get the right cable length, the same way you did on the rear caliper, and then just cut that bit of outer off. Push the inner cable back through the outer, then you want to slide the casing cap on and refit and secure to the caliper the way you did with the rear one. Had any aha moments? Chuck them in the comments down below, and I look forward to seeing you in stage 10 of Tour de Bike 2024. We'll be visiting multiple areas on the bike where I'm going to show you how to grease the adjusters without removing all the cables. This is a simple stage, but nonetheless important. This will help you with future servicing of your bike, making adjustments, and it could save you the heartache of having something seized in.